SolidWorks 2016 introduces some exciting new capabilities for costing. First, let's take a look at some new sheet metal capabilities. Now this part has already been costed, but we'll show you some new capabilities that have been added, namely the ability to cost a part based on sheet size. Previously we had the ability to cost a part based on material weight. For 2016 you now have the option to choose the sheet size. For this material there are multiple sheet sizes. Notice as the sheet size is changed, the cost per part changes. The bounding box offset is not new, but does give a visual representation of the added material that may be required at the border of the flat pattern outline. With the new sheet size costing, there is a sheet border offset to add additional material near the edge of the sheet. SolidWorks 2016 introduces basic nesting capability that nests the bounding boxes, giving a quick cost estimate. To be sure, this is not full nesting, which uses algorithms to determine the best way to lay out the parts to minimize raw material use, but does address the request from SolidWorks customers who have indicated that basic bounding box nesting is good enough for the estimation stage. SolidWorks provides the percent scrap, number of parts per sheet, and total number of sheets required, in this case 2. Changing to the larger sheet size, you can see that this lot can now be nested in a single sheet. You can get a visual representation of the nesting and see how the bounding boxes line up, and you can see the areas where material is left over, where you can reuse for additional parts. The setup is done through the costing templates. Looking at the thickness and filtering for materials, you can see that for the 3mm sheet we have information for costing by weight, as well as 2 entries for the multiple sheet sizes and their associated costs. Let's save this cost information with the part and go back to the assembly and take a look at some enhancements for costing machined parts. In this part we have some large 26mm holes. SolidWorks Costing recognizes these as holes, but since we don't have a drill of that size, warns me of the mismatch with any available tool. To rectify this, you can choose to change this feature to be a milled hole, but it's up to you to remember to do this. On milled parts like this, you may choose to always add some machining allowance around the perimeter of the part. Again, you have to remember to account for this step in the costing process. Another common action may be to add a custom operation, like anodizing or plating for all steel parts. These tasks are something that the user has to remember to do for each part, but are better done through automation, and SolidWorks 2016 adds just this capabilities with rules-based costing. Changing to a costing template that contains rules gives you a different cost per part. Notice that the machining allowance has automatically been added to the perimeter of the part, and there are facing operations to remove that material. The large holes have now been identified as milling operation as opposed to drill, and the zinc plating has automatically been added as a custom operation. All this with no interaction by the user. These rules are captured in the costing templates. The first rule in this template says to convert all holes that are larger than 20mm to milled circular pockets. The second rule says that if the part is steel, then to add zinc plating to the part. And the third rule adds material to the sides of the block if machining is selected. Adding a new rule is simple. Give it a name, then choose the type of rule that you want to apply, if or if then choose from the available list of rules. This new rules-based costing is a simple way to build intelligence into your templates to keep you from having to remember to do it manually and provide you more accurate cost information. Again, we'll save this part and jump back to the assembly. SolidWorks 2016 introduces the ability to do costing on the entire assembly. You can see that there are 2 parts that have yet to be costed. Parts that contain cost information are listed as well. The 2 parts that we just worked on are listed with their saved cost, as well as purchase parts with their associated costs as well. Toolbox parts are included along with their associated costs to give a complete cost breakdown for the assembly. Let's begin the cost estimation for this assembly, and SolidWorks will cost the 2 parts that had no cost information associated with them, as well as do a complete roll-up of the cost for the entire assembly based on the quantities of each part. You can see the newly costed parts along with the ones done earlier. Also available is the purchase parts with their quantities on the tooltip, as well as the toolbox parts. There's also a custom operation for the time required to put the assembly together. In this case, $4 per part times 28 parts. Let's take a quick look at the costing template for assemblies, where you can see the assembly operation at $4 per part and information for purchase parts. Here you can list individual parts and their associated cost, or an easier method is to extract it from the individual part custom properties. In this template, purchase cost will be pulled from any part with a custom property of cost, purchase price, or price. Finally, you need to be able to document this cost information, and this is done by publishing a costing report. Fill out the report information and hit publish. Let's cancel this report and take a look at one that has already been generated for this assembly. Similar to other costing reports, all information is clearly presented, such as information about the assembly, the lot size, total cost, and cost breakdown including any markup. There's also a cost impact area listing the top 10 parts contributing most to the overall cost, as well as individual cost breakdown for calculated parts, purchase parts, and toolbox parts. And lastly, any setups and custom operations. So as you can see, there are a lot of new enhancements to get your parts and assemblies accurately costed in record time.